Welcome to the bliss. Nah, I'm kidding everybody. Welcome to SQuiDZ Gaming. Let's talk about Faith Seed before we get into who she is in the current game of Far Cry 5. Faith Seed is the herald of the Henbane River where the bliss is created to control the angels. Her real name is Rachel Jessup, and this can be found on the answering machine in her region. She gives you insight into her side of the story on how she was abused, raped, and how these events made her turn to drugs. She fell very low in the community and was found by Joseph and was brought to projects at Eden Gate. During her time, she followed a strict moral code and this slowly cured her of her addiction. However, near the end, we find out this may not have been such a warm, welcoming party. Faith is not related to the family and is the adopted sister of the Seed family. You find out later in the game that there was more than one Faith throughout the games. Faith may have followed a strict moral code, but she is extremely manipulative and capable of lying extremely well. Her use of the bliss and manipulative skills make people who want to fight her or push back turn to her side or kill themselves. The best example of this is obviously Marshall, Cameron Burke, who was taken over by the bliss, and once he was freed, he did not want to live. The first abduction scene consists of Faith explaining her story about anguish and drugs. This is where she says Joseph showed her the way and now she wants to set others free and make them feel alive. Another recurring theme in this game is setting people free and making them truly live. Faith and John tend to share these beliefs, and how they arrive are massively different.
Bullied by friends, abused by her family. She took to a needle for help. She was all alone. She wanted to die.
However, we get a sense of extreme fear and truth about her situation with Joseph once you burn Joseph's book. This is done by destroying his statue and heading to the top and burning his book. She explains, "Don't you understand what he'll do to me?"
What have you done? His words. Don't you understand what he'll do to me?
We also know that Faith Seed is not the first, and there may have been 3 to 4 other women before Rachel. The most noticeable one before Rachel was Selena. This position in the cult appears to be replaceable and expendable, thus a sense of true fear comes from Faith during certain scenes. Faith's position in the family is adoptive. They are not by bloodline, and therefore it almost feels like it's almost easier to replace her in certain situations. Also throughout the game you'll find various notes mentioning other people that were Faith's and Joseph showing fondness of them. One was a brunette and then one was a blonde, and you begin to see that the position of Faith is not secure. There's one last note to pay close attention to. It's called a confession. I just wanted to be special. When Joseph came into my life, I felt like you've given me a true gift, Lord, that a man who talks to you would bring me in on your holy conversation. And so I took the name that you gave me, Lord, through Joseph, Faith. And I am a woman made anew. But now, I'm ashamed to say, even though I carry his name, my devotion to the project is plagued by doubt. What do I do? I know you will forgive me, dear Lord. I don't know if Joseph will. And this just goes to show you the further doubt Faith has in Joseph and the further fear she has. This almost concretes if these words are from Faith. These could have been from any of the previous 2 to 3. However, what we are going to go off of and make sure this is Faith's words is a woman made anew. Now, all of them could have said that. However, Faith is the biggest one that always speaks about renewal and being a new person. During Faith's second abduction scene, she is nowhere to be found when Joseph starts preaching a sermon. Pay attention, the whole abduction scene does not include Faith after the beginning. And every other region at least shows the main herald with Joseph for most of the scene. Is this for Joseph's story, or does it demonstrate Faith's fear of Joseph?
Look at the same years that I do. Through your eyes.
This might demonstrate the fear of Faith because in the background is one of the endings happening, which is also a hint if you never would have guessed it. Faith is ignored where she's hiding from the radical claims and beliefs that Joseph has. She does not have full faith in the Father and shows it in her messages and her words. Skipping ahead quickly to align her final fight scene near the end of the battle, she begins to panic and say she did not willingly want to do this. she accused Joseph of taking a 17-year-old girl and pumping her full of drugs to create what he wanted. Faith's story was tragic, and it turned more tragic when the father decided to pick up and adopt her into the family.
17. I was just a child.
Rachel may not have lived as she continued her drug path. However, once she joined the cult, she was locked into service.
My faith.
We can assume if Faith wanted to stop her role, Joseph would have replaced her, or Rachel would have had to commit suicide. There was no longer a good out for Rachel Jessup. Her name was Faith Seed, and she was willing to follow the Father's will to the very end. Let's not exclude the fact, though, that Joseph had compassion and did care about for Faith, even though that's not her real name.
Broken.
He is sad to have learned of her death, and does mention some nice things about her. What we'll have to take into consideration is, Joseph does debatable things that John and Faith Seed do fear. I believe this is based on the premise of fearing but loving the Father idea from Christianity. It's a little older one. In old biblical times, they always tell you to be a God-fearing, loving person, because to fear your Lord because of what he can do, however also love him because he is the only way. And we kind of get this idea through Joseph throughout a lot of the gameplay.
It is faith that holds us together. And without it, we are lost. So we must never lose faith.
Another important factor to consider on how different Faith is from the other two heralds, John and Jacob put you in harmful situations where immediately begin using their force over you. Faith is not immediately hostile, and she appears to be very reluctant to act hostile towards you until you break her trust too many times. Faith definitely wants you to walk the path of the Father without forcing you or trying to kill you initially.
I know you have your doubts. This is the only way the story ends. Nothing you can do can change that.
It is not until you free the Marshal from his blissful state that she becomes very hostile and annoyed.
Leave him alone!
Even then, she says, if the language you speak is violence, I can speak your language. This is the scene where the Marshal ends Virgil and then ends his own life after saying he didn't want to be freed. She does this in an apologetic manner, though, thus hinting violence was never her first intention.
Blood is on your hands.
And when their blood is on your hands,
We'll see how heroic you feel.
see how heroic you feel.
What are you doing?
I'm sorry to have to do this.
I'm sorry to have to do this.
I wanted there to be another way.
I wanted there to be another way.
But you made your choice.
But you made your choice.
Who opened the doors?
Oh shit, they're inside.
I told you. I didn't want to leave.
Her final fight scene would also suggest this weird world of violence as she shoots magical missiles at us and we kill multiple forms of her. When she dies in the bliss, and we actually only ever see Faith in the flesh during the intro of the game. As she is bloodied and dying in the river, she makes some last predictions and shows her last broken stage before death. As she is dying, she reaches out for you. I took this as she's so desperate for someone to support her and take her in and show her true love, she was willing to lean on her potential killer.
You'll be the one.
However, once you pull back from her, you can see the realization that her time is up and she's going to die here. It's very sad. I never took Faith as an extremely horrible person in the game. Yes, she was extremely manipulative and she lied all the time, but she had to do that for her own survival. And it's not to say that in a different life, Faith C probably would have found herself on the opposite side of the forces if she wasn't taken in by Joseph. Joseph then talks about her in the idea of faith, which is probably the reason why he called her Faith. Ironically, Faith did not truly have faith in the Father, but she followed him out of fear and coercion. Rachel, a broken teenager, abused and unloved by her community and picked up by a man with a vision of God. She was transformed into something she may never have wished of being, but in the end, we are all broken in Far Cry 5.
And if you don't listen to him,
There's also 3 very important phone calls in Faith's region, each one almost showing a part of her mental state as you go throughout the game. The first one I found, now obviously all of these can be found in a different order. Wherever you're at in the game, you know, you get what you want. However, I'm going to try to guess what her mental path was to all of these. Out of the 3, the one about babies, I'm going to say is the first. Now, why is this? I'm saying this because if you listen to her talk, she's mentioning something about souls. And this is something that is in Rachel or Faith, whatever you want to call her, is absolutely broken and shattered. And this is how she arrived to the fact that other people give you your soul. You're nothing more than a bunch of emotions as a baby, and then as you grow up, people give you your soul, and they have the ability to take it away from you. This is very telling of, I think, what she thought of as she was younger. As she was beaten and abused and all these horrible things happened to her, she believes her soul was taken away by the people that beat her and did all these horrible, heinous things. And then as Joseph came along, she felt as if she was given her soul back. This weird play on each other that people give you purpose, that your soul is only given to you or it is taken by others, that you actually have no control of what you have. The second voicemail or call on this is when she starts talking about Faith and Rachel. She's the same. Jessup Conservatory used to be Rachel Jessup's, and she gave it to the cult. That's how you know her last name. She mentions that Faith has the ability to fly and do all these other magical things. But Rachel, she's kept real low. She's very low. She gropes around, is mean and depressed. Rachel is no longer Faith. However, when she is, Faith tries to put behind the life she was given, but she can't. Because no matter how much she thinks her soul is taken or given by others, at least I personally believe that your soul is yours. And she cannot get past that. She cannot accept the fact that all these horrible things have happened, and no matter how much new purpose she is given, Rachel inside of her will always be broken, depressed, and crumbling because she doesn't know how to deal with it. And that brings us to the last voicemail, the last call. And here, no words, no dialogue, just her sobbing, just her crying. You could maybe put this as the first one. However, I think this is a great idea of the last one. That she's tried all these other coping methods, finding purpose, believing in the Lord, believing in the Father, all this stuff. But she still can't accept the life she's been given. She can't atone for everything that's happened. Therefore, she is nothing but tears now. All she can do is cry because Rachel is who she is and Faith is just something that Joseph gave her, and she doesn't want to be. She doubts Joseph. She doesn't really necessarily like Joseph. So all she can do is cry.
A baby is a sack of screaming, shitting, crying impulses with no personality, no thoughts, no understanding of the world beyond feelings. It has no soul. You have to give it one. The only soul we ever have, we receive from others. And it is only others who can take it away. Rachel's so sad and alone. Once was lost, never found. She led a faithless life and it brought her low. Faith rose up in her, but Rachel stayed low down. Faith flies divine.
We need to get ready.
And Rachel gropes around in the darkness. I left her there a long time ago.
We need to get ready.